I don't know why this has changed, but I had the thing behind me all lined up. Whatever, I'm blurring it.
You don't want me to see what desserts are on the
Oh,
menu?
yeah, those are from a while ago. So
That's
those were
not
like
happening
goals
anymore,
together.
Bob. Ah, the team goal.
Yep. Oh man. So the company that I applied for,
Yeah.
still waiting. They've apparently been doing paperwork for a week and a half now because they've never hired someone before, so they're writing everything from scratch.
Oh yeah, that's it, if you're the first, it's going to be a painful process.
Yeah. And they have to convince the NSF that they want me enough to pay me. So there's a whole thing going on.
Added on top of everything else.
Yeah. But on the plus side, I'm going to be commuting 3 hours a day. So, yeah, hour and a half by train. So I think I'm going to leave really early in the morning and sleep on the train.
With an alarm on your phone?
Pretty much. The difference right now is I drive most of an hour every day to drop off John at his daycare before going to work. So this is going to be an hour and a half solo in a train. I think I'm going to invest in a better phone or maybe some sort of portable video game thing, something to make the travel a little less boring.
I have your PSP and I watched a video on how to mod it.
I was talking to Chris. I offered him all of my games, but I couldn't remember if I had my PSP or not.
To my house,
I,
but if he wants it, I know where it is.
I mean,
And
I can emulate everything on there now. I'm thinking about there's this new thing called a Steam Deck, which is
yeah,
like a handheld computer. If you've seen those,
I've seen
considered getting one of those.
it. It looks pretty stinking legit. Hey
Yeah,
babe, turn on my light by chance.
it does look like you're sneaking in.
It looks like I'm.
Oh.
Whoa.
Oh, never mind. It's the hood. That's what makes you look like you're.
And like make it so that you're not like tiny. You gotta be.
Hi, Jordy.
No, it doesn't.
Don't worry, the screen
Hi.
totally froze when your hand flipped through.
You guys already filming?
No, I
Rob,
don't
you've
think
got
Oh,
a
I was
white
like, I think
pillow.
you're
You've
filming.
got a white pillow there in the corner over there, or maybe I'm on the other side for your screen. Oh, my internet is struggling. One moment, one moment. I'm just gonna close
Yeah, you
everything.
heard lots of technical things
it's been it's been a rough day for my computer. Oh man.
because they heard about the Steam Deck and it feels cheated on.
No, it's my laptop that should feel bad about that. Then again, I didn't realize my laptop's like 10 years old. I've had it for like 5 or 6 years now. Didn't realize it
Been
had been
wild.
so long. So, all right. Well,
Oh,
um,
before you click record, so I had Chris
oh,
come
I've
and
I've been recording all of this. I
oh,
I
okay.
I hit record when you show up most of the time. The assumption is, and I just downloaded a new video editor, so we should be able to get the videos out again.
Which one are you using?
Power editor, I think. I downloaded it because it was suggested as a free option, but when I downloaded it, it was like, "Do you want the free version?" Like the next upgrade is we remove the watermark, and I'm like, "Dadgummit! Like I don't want a watermark. Like, that kind of defeats the whole purpose."
I like Shotcut. Have you heard of
Shotcut? Uh
Shot? Let me make sure that it's actually Shotcut. Yeah, Shotcut.
uh
It's
Okay.
free. and that's what I used for my video editing. And you can put like frames before, you can put like a soundtrack, you can minimize
Nice.
other sounds, like, and
Yeah.
there's all kinds of tutorials online.
I've got a bunch of, well, so the frustrating thing is I actually bought software. I bought Video Pro X, but I installed it on my E drive, which was an external drive on my other computer, and it says you can only install this once, and I'm like, crap. But that one got unplugged when I was trying to back up some other stuff. And so now that's the F drive. And so my computer doesn't know that it's there anymore. And so I've tried to download it onto my other computer, and it will no longer talk to their services. And it says I need to turn off all of my computer's firewalls so that it can talk to the Magic's company. And I'm like, I'll just find something free.
Never
Like,
mind, I'm good.
I'll go back to Windows Movie Maker if I have to.
Shotcut works really well, but I mean, it was a decently steep learning curve, but any new software is so.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to find something that's functional. Easy and functional. That's what I'm looking for.
It's funny that that's where we've gotten to, and I know that this wasn't going to be our subject tonight, but 100%, I think that this is what we're probably talking about. You remember like our first computers, like what we got from like Uncle Mark, like the Compact
the
133.
the one that he built for us, the one that had like weird ghosts in the machine and would like just turn on of its own accord.
And screen was just on, like,
Yeah.
Uncle Mark, what did you do to this?
Yeah, that was a weird time. Now, I remember the computer before that, but I don't know where that computer came from. Because there was one before that.
There was, because the 133 was the one that was awesome. Like,
That one, yeah, that one was like,
so
I
much
think we had
better.
Windows 98. Unky Mark had like loaded up the hard drive with a bunch of like games for us, so there were like
Quake
100 something.
yeah,
Yeah.
like Quake and a couple of like the dumb text games like Go Doug.
Yeah, I found one of those, by the way, when I did my what was it? So I went back and I found uh traffic defense or something. It was I'd never realized because I never read any of the text in the game. You're a traffic cop in the future. It's actually what the theme of the game was. But I remember playing it a lot and actually getting pretty good at it. There was that, and then there was this really old, awful kind of side scroller RPG game. And as I was going through all of these Nintendo games, I ran across it. I found like that game and looked it up, and it's apparently on like a bunch of hidden gems lists for people that are really nostalgic for when games were bad or worse.
Like, about Stunts. Do you remember that one?
Ooh,
The race
yes.
car game?
Stunts, the game that had the best DRM control in the world, where you had to open the booklet and find a specific like 6-letter word to type in when you'd start the game. Otherwise, it just you'd crash after like a short drive if you got the wrong word.
That
So
was the best.
yeah,
So,
lots of those.
technology has come a long way since we were children. A long
That's true.
way.
Very true.
Outside of just the Juno dial-up that we had or the processor. I mean, I
Yeah,
remember.
you remember like knocking out the phone line to check emails or whatever. I
Or when
so
the phone would ring and then you were offline, you're just like, oh,
yeah, or yeah, all so many things that were just like unique to the time. But it's weird because I talk to people that are my age, maybe a little bit older, and they had a really different experience with this. Like, apparently, a lot of people had like a second line in their house, or they had like dedicated internet, and like they're talking about like, oh, like I spent so much time on like instant messaging chat apps and things like this, and I'm like, oh, like I had an email account like through Juno, and that was it. Like that was
Yep.
like the extent of my.
I would check junk mail, and then I would turn off the computer.
Yeah, I remember thinking the internet was a really cool idea, and I don't know what I ever used it for. Like I remember that. I remember we got like we got really fast internet at one point. We got like DSL.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and we had that for like the free trial period of like 2 or 3 months maybe. And I remember I would go on all the time, and I'd go to like the Cartoon Network website, and I'd play those crappy Flash games.
They were amazing.
Oh, it
Oh,
was a different time.
the beginning of coding. Wow. Yeah. Looking, because there was like what was you had like Strong Bad or Homestar
Yeah,
Run.
Homestar Runner that had the strong bad emails. That was like the only thing we ever watched on there.
Yeah.
Um,
And there was the other one, the one with like the gerbil in the microwave.
Joe Cartoon.
Go
So
Kart.
Joe Cartoon had all of the, I guess you'd call it the edgy stuff, because it was
What's on
always,
the internet now is not
yeah,
overly.
like I mean there I to be honest, I don't feel like you find most of what was on Joe Cartoon anymore, because normally it involved like animals dying pretty awfully. There's that, and that was also the time of like Happy Tree Friends and stuff that was just gross. Yeah, I
Yeah,
I didn't get into I
that
didn't
was
get into that one very much.
YouTube.
Yeah,
Pre-YouTube. I feel
yeah,
like life was easier back then. Like, I don't know. So the subject, welcome to McLaughlin Minutes.
yeah. Maybe we should lay out an actual subject instead of just reminiscing about computers.
I just feel like times were simpler. But it's interesting. So two part the reason so the subject tonight that I thought that we should talk about is our bad dating experiences. And this is two part. Number one, there's always the comedy aspect behind it. Number two, like life was simpler back in the day. Just comparatively to like me and Uncle Spud are now married. So like I
Yeah.
don't know, I'm not in the dating game, but I've heard horror stories since being
Oh,
married.
I get regular updates from Hannah's sister, who's
Oh
dating
yeah.
again, and it sounds terrible. It sounds like a really rough process.
It was pretty bad near the end of your.
Oh yeah, no, I got a smartphone so that I could try out things like Tinder, and I had my experiences with online dating, which were just universally bad. I know plenty of people like find love in online dating. I had no such luck.
Closest thing that I had to online dating was Yahoo Pool in my senior year of
I remember chatting
high
with people and sharing just way too personal of information, and hearing
school.
way too personal of information,
Yeah.
and it was always weird stuff. Like I still remember I had this really long conversation with this lady who got divorced and was like angry at her ex. I beat the tar out of her at pool, and I like to think I gave her some good advice as like a 12-year-old who was there on Yahoo just to play pool because it was like the most fun thing to do on the internet at the time.
Yep, that was the pinnacle of everything. That was your time waster back in the day.
Yeah.
But so we had Chris stay at our house last night because he was headed to the airport this morning.
Oh
He
yeah.
was concerned about Sardine Canyon in the snow.
Fair enough.
So he's like, I want to just come down there and just get out of the way. And we're like, oh, that's perfect. And we got on the subject of bad dates. And I won't speak to your dates, but I can start with mine. And so Chris was the one that brought it up. And like I had forgotten, but my first date ever. So I turned 16 And I'm pretty sure it was the day that I turned 16 that Chris said that he was going to like line up a date and get me a date. And so
Fun
he
fact, Chris tried the same thing on me, and I didn't go on another date for a whole year. Which lets you know how well it went.
yeah, I didn't get scared off. Chris picked one of the cute girls that he was working with because he was working at the Bubble as a lifeguard. And I'm pretty sure Chris said her name was Dana, and I remember her name vaguely. I know that I had like a huge crush on her little sister later, who I worked with, but it was my first date, and I'm pretty sure Dana was supposed to be Chris's date. But one of our dates, it was going to be a double date, but one of our dates didn't show up. And so it being my first date, I don't know if Chris like took one for the team and he's like, oh, my date didn't show up. But at the same point in time, like Chris got stood up all the time on dates.
Really?
Oh,
I
all
got
the
stood
time.
up a handful of times, maybe, but I definitely got I like if I made it to the point where there was an agreement to go on a date, I almost always had the girl show up.
No, like I think me and Chris double dated for probably my first 10. Not because like I needed the support or anything else. It was more convenient and more fun. Like it was just, I was comfortable around Chris and we could have fun with anybody. Um, but yeah, like 100%, like Chris got stood up probably 6 times out of the first 10 dates that we went on as a
Holy cow!
it was just
I,
all the time.
I feel like something in that needs to be figured out.
There's a black box smoldering somewhere in rec that will never get really any of the firm details on.
Oh
But yeah,
man.
that first date, I don't even remember. Like we went to dinner or something like, but it was like a trio. It's the three of us that went to dinner, and then we went back to Dana's house and went downstairs to watch a movie. And like 10 or 15 minutes into the movie, Dana left. And so it was me and Chris watching a
Chris
movie in
watching a
somebody
movie
else's
together.
basement. And I'm like, wow, like this sucks.
Oh man.
So Chris, true to his word, tried to like line something else up and get another date. But I just remember there was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of those just right off the bat. Just some rough dating experience. But the reason I tell this story, or at least partial of this story, is it was simpler, right? Like we just talked about what the internet didn't have compared to what we do now. And so like you had nothing else but really bad dates that you could go on.
Well, I remember the process, and it was like horrifying for me because I was really awkward and shy. But looking up a girl's name in the phone book, hoping that you got the right house, and then hoping that she answered, because that I don't know about you, but there was this horrible awkward like calling up from the house, and like it's like, oh please, like please be her or just the answering machine. Like either of those, nothing else was a good was a good
Yeah.
solution.
There's no win here at
And
all.
then again, I remember during it was probably during my senior year where I got into the habit of when I was looking for a date, I would write out the names of all of the girls I wanted to take out in order, and then I would call them sequentially. And if I made it to the end of the list, I would start at the top again. I would call down that list over and over again. And I feel bad now because I realize how bad of etiquette that was. Especially by the third or fourth message I left on the answering machine.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Spud again. I'm just trying to get a hold of someone.
Anyone? I
Anybody?
don't like going out to eat by myself, and I really, really want to.
Oh man.
I don't know. I think that you've got to go. So, life advice of the McLaughlin minutes for this posterity that will never listen to this. You got to get through all the awkward dates of high school. So by the time you're done with high school, like you've knocked off most of that awkward.
Or you do what I did and you just backload all the awkwardness once you hit a certain age. And you're like, you know what? I just want to see what happens when I say these things. I know Chris did that in high school, and I kind of took some inspiration from that. But there was a girl I took out in college. Her nickname was Boss because she had been my boss at my job. She
Boss.
my like sophomore year, she was my TA, and I had a huge crush on her. And like a year later, she was my boss, and because I was then a TA, and she was like the lead TA. At the end of the semester, I called her up and asked her out on a date, and we went out, and I was like, I'm just not that into her anymore. I'm like, whatever. But we go on this date, it goes fine, it's just a normal sort of date. But we end up back in her house. And we're hanging out and chatting on her couch. And, you know, I guess I should introduce that I kind of had a bad record at this point of I would go out with a girl. I either it was a first date and nothing else, or we would end up kissing and making out on the first date. There'd be like this whirlwind 2 weeks where we were together every single day, and then no. Oh, sorry. Do I need to tone this down?
No, time out. Just gonna say for everybody, don't make out on your first date. Okay.
Oh yeah, bad idea. Really bad idea. None of my relationships where I kissed on the first date were any good. So that's what, 13 out of 14.
It's a really bad ratio.
So here I am. I'm with Boss. I'm sitting there. I've had like 4 or 5 girls that I kissed on the first date. Things went badly, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna kiss someone on my I'm not gonna kiss her on my first date. Like, I'm also not all that interested in her. So we're sitting there, and then we're on the couch, and I realize I've got my arm around her, and I'm leaning in, and I'm like, oh, no, like, this is bad. I need an exit strategy. And I look, and the light catches that little bit of peach fuzz that everybody has on their top lip. And I go, and I'm like, oh, what would Chris say in this situation? And I go, I'd kiss you, but I'm afraid I'd get whisker burn. And I lose it. I start laughing so hard that I fall off the couch. What, like tears running down the side. And before you judge me too harshly, I'm sorry about this. I feel bad about it. It's still hilarious though. So I'm sitting there, I'm just crying with laughter, and eventually my eyes clear enough that I can see that she has not moved an inch. She is like stock still on the couch. And I'm like, like she didn't see the humor in that at all. And so
Land.
I get back up and I, talk to her, and I don't know what I said or did, but I somehow made that date recover, and we ended up making out that night, and I never talked to her again. So it was really, it went from here down to here, and then back up to here, and then right back down to here. So that was my whole dating experience. I think that one typifies it pretty well. Well, but this is all much later post mission, when I had like some self-confidence. there was a long time, particularly pre-mission, where my dates were not nearly that exciting or not nearly that successful / unsuccessful. So there's the date where I brought a girl over, and you got in trouble, though. I remember that one. So I brought over this girl named Ariane. This is like my senior year, I think. So I brought her over, and we were watching.
Pause again. So I have no idea who this girl is. I'm going to tell you guys right now. I knew about Boss because, a quick note, we used nicknames
yeah.
because there were so many girls that went through a house of five boys that all really wanted to date.
So
So
the
nicknames were how we kept them all active.
part of the reason it really amped up was I ended up dating like 3 Sarahs in a row. Um, one of which may have been Boss. I don't actually remember her real name. But
Also,
but
the problem with nicknames.
mhm. It's nice because they're easy to remember. It's bad because it's easy to forget the other ones. Um, so this girl is actually someone who I think Chris went out with her older sister at some point later on. But uh, I brought her over because the movie I Am Legend had just come out, which is a very scary movie with Will Smith versus a bunch of zombies. So I call her up, ask her to come over and watch this movie with me. She says yes. I'm thrilled, and I had not prepared, so we went to like Top Hat Video, which had cheap rentals, and they didn't have it there. And then I bit the bullet, and we went to like Blockbuster, and I ended up paying like $7 to rent the movie for the weekend or something like that, which it was really hard for me to pry that much money out of my wallet because I never had a job. So I don't know where my money came from at that point in my life.
Yeah.
But bring her back home. It's really late at this point because Top Hat you couldn't rent things cheaply until like it was like 9 or 10 at night on the weekends.
The
And
last hour that they were open. So on
yeah.
the weekends, it was
So
9 to
so
10.
I'd gone from there across town to the Blockbuster. So it's really late. We finally get this movie, which is fairly long, and then we go down into the basement, which Mike, after his mission, had fancied out into sort of a bachelor pad, and then over several years it had been cleaned up enough that you could use it as a bachelor pad. At this point, uh, Rob, you're home from your mission, and you are. Are
So
you
the
home from your
futon was
mission?
there?
Huh?
Was there the futon at the big
Yes,
box?
the futon was in there. The love sack was in there. You were sleeping in the bedroom there, and you had a job. So I was 17 or 18. So you would have been what 21, 22. So this is like just after your mission.
I just got home then.
Yeah.
I should remember this. I have no
So
idea what's going on.
we go down to watch this movie together, and it's a scary movie, and I'm a wuss at scary movies. But if I'm not focused on a scary movie, I am not a wuss about scary movies. And if there's a girl there, that helps. So I sit down on the futon, she sits down next to me, and for I'd say the first conservatively half hour of the film, I have done the stretch and put the arm out thing, and it's slowly sliding down across like 30 minutes. My shoulder is sore because I'm too scared to put my arm all the way down. And she's just sitting there. I am certain, patiently waiting for me to work up the nerve. Because by the time my arm finally makes it down and like I make any contact, she like slides into me and we kind of cuddle during the movie. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And the movie was no concern from then on out. And, throughout this movie, she's kind of cuddled against me. The movie ends and she's like, just like inches from my face, which I think is weird. So like I keep facing away from her because she's getting like weirdly close to my face and she keeps like rubbing my chest and it's kind of weird. So, I'm just having a good time because my arm's around a cute girl and I'm just excited about things. And I'm like, all right, like, this is good. Like this is how things should be.
Mission, right? So had you kissed
So
anybody at this
no,
point?
hadn't kissed anyone at this point.
Okay.
I hadn't kissed anyone yet. I didn't kiss anyone until like a year later because, I assumed that the first time you kissed someone had to be on their doorstep. It had to be a quick peck, and it was when you said goodnight. That was the time and place where you kiss someone. And so I think that I'm like, this is perfect. Like this is exactly what I wanted to have happen tonight. And it was like that was totally the goal for me.
Pinnacle.
Well, we're sitting there, we're talking about just nothing. Because when you're a teenager, you can talk about nothing for a really long time. And And I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, it's 11. I'm like, it's like, we should be done with the movie before midnight. It's like 12:30, the movie's over. It's about 1:30 in the morning and we're still sitting there. Um, and I suddenly hear thump as the door closes upstairs. And I go, oh, my mom's home from work. And we had a very, very strict curfew. It was midnight. Like you had people out of the house and you were home by midnight. That was the rule. And so I'm like, oh, I'm dead. And so I jump. I go from like contented and happy to terrified. I jump up. I'm like, put your shoes on. Get out the door. We've gotta go. and I can't figure out why she's dragging her feet and why she's so angry. But you know, whatever.
About nothing for the last hour, rubbing your chest.
I know. All I know is, I'm gonna get in trouble with my mom. Like I don't know what you were thinking. So so I'm sitting there trying to get her to hurry along, and she's just like not having it. So she's slowly grabbing her stuff, and then I hear as mom is walking down the stairs, slamming her feet in her big heavy boots because she's just gotten home from work. She had like a midnight shift. And
I'm going to kick some butt.
she gets downstairs. And I'm like, oh, she's going to kill me. She's going to kill me. And she's got her gun with her. She's going to kill me. And she comes downstairs. And I'm standing there right next to the exit. And there's kind of like the route in. And then there's a door off to my left. And I'm like, quick, like if we sneak out the door, maybe I can get you out of here and drive you home. And my mom never has to know that you were here. But she gets down to where she should be able to see me, and she opens the door to your room. And she goes, Robert, you blocked me out of the driveway! Because when I had gotten home with this girl, I drove the truck in, and I parked at the very front of the driveway. Because I'm like, crap, if I get blocked in, I don't want to have to move a car. Yelling at you, and I hear you like half asleep. What are you talking about? I didn't even drive the truck today. Well, you parked it badly. You need to go move it. And you're finally like, I think Spud is like watching a movie. I didn't even know you were home. I thought that the house was completely empty except for me and this girl watching a movie. And so, like, I'm standing there, and she turns and she sees me, and she's like. And as she's about to yell at me, the girl I'm with has finally put her coat and shoes back on. And I'm like, Mom, this is Ariane, Mom, she's me. And I like stand off to the side and hope for the best.
God.
And I watch Mom. She's glaring and she goes, hello, Ariane. And she reaches out, shakes her hand. And she's like putting a smile on her face, but she's so mad. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, anyway, it's late. I need to get her home. And so I hustle her out the door, run her out to the truck, turn it on, and it's freezing cold. This is like middle of winter. So like it's this ice cold drive back because the heater doesn't work well in the truck. And I drive her home. And I'm just thrilled that like I got away without getting shot. And I drive her back to her house, and as we're driving there, it suddenly clicks in my mind, hey, this is like your second or third date with this girl. You should try to kiss her when you get to the doorstep. I'm like, yeah. And I watched that other Will Smith movie, Hitch, and you're supposed to stop on the doorstep and they play with their keys and you kiss them. What I didn't know is that this girl is fuming right now because I've wasted an entire night of hers.
Three. Second or third night, remember?
At least 3 nights with her. I drive her back to her house and get out, and I go to open her door, and she's already out, and she's like bolted to the door already. And I get up there, I'm like, hey, this was really fun, didn't I? And she's like, yeah, by click. And like slams the door. I'm like, huh. Well, that was a weird response for such a nice night. So I go back, I drive home, and I like coast into the driveway, like turn off the truck, put it in neutral, and coast up into the driveway. And I'm like, all right, maybe mom will already be asleep and she won't have checked the time. And I go inside and I like as I'm trying so like the way our house is set up, I have to go down a hallway and it's past mom's room and the door's open to her room. So as I'm walking past, I like get all the way to my door and I'm like, I have to check in. And so I walk back and I'm like, Mom, I made it home safe. And she's like, all right, like, it's kind of late. Go to bed. We go to bed. And I'm thrilled because I just got out of, like, I'm like, I'm fine. Because there's no way that I can get grounded the next morning for something I did the night before because I saw mom.
Yeah, mom will sleep it off, right?
Yeah, like she'll have forgotten. I'll have forgotten by the morning. So I wake up the next morning, go out. I'm making like a 7-egg omelet because that's what I did. I'm sitting there cooking this thing and I'm just about done. I'm pouring all the food into a bowl and mom comes out and she's like, good morning. And I'm good morning. And I'm having a good time. And she's like, so that girl was here pretty late last night. And I'm like, yeah, she was. And mom's like, make sure it doesn't happen again. And I'm like, sure thing. And I dump the food and run downstairs. I'm like, okay, now she can't go back on it because she's now cleared me. So I run downstairs. I'm eating breakfast. I run into your room to go talk to you. I'm like, hey, guess what? And you're like folding laundry at this point. I'm like, guess what, Rob? Like, I had a girl over till like 1:30 in the morning and I didn't get grounded. And I realized my mistake saying that because you like throw your stuff around. No, that's garbage. I got grounded for 3 weeks because I was 3 minutes late home one time. And you storm upstairs, be like, Mom, this is garbage. Like, you need to ground Spud. And you're going upstairs just like raving. And I'm following along, eating food out of the bowl. Huh? Yeah, righteous indignation. But I'm convinced that that's the reason why I didn't actually get grounded. Because you got up there and you were like, you need to ground Spud. And mom's like, what? You don't tell me what to do.
So this is the epitome of the life that we grew up in. And people talk about how like the middle child syndrome, like it's a real thing, 100%. So there was almost every occasion when there were multiple of us. And the only reason I don't know what happened while I was on my mission, because I swear that mom probably blamed stuff for me when I was in Missouri. But if I was
I do know that Nathan would regularly say, I think Rob broke that before he left. That was normally the end of a discussion. Like, what happened to the lawnmower? I think Rob broke it before he left. Like, he's been gone for a year.
So if I was home and somebody else was home, I was always the first to get yelled at. Like,
it is true. That, like, do you remember the water balloon incident? Have we talked about the water balloon incident?
That was the one that I was talking about. So I don't remember. So to give a little bit more context, I was the one that had turned that living space into a bachelor pad that was actually something
that was actually clean and didn't smell weird.
I'm guessing that this was happening before I met Jordy, because after I met Jordy, I hung out with her all the time.
Yeah.
It was either downstairs or at her house. Yeah, I don't remember this. So the other piece of context to know about this is I had served my mission. I had got home from my mission. I had heart surgery. The last time I had heart surgery was when I was 16 years old. So I'm 21 now. I'm like 5 years later. And like, oh, you're good.
All right, there we go. You're back. I lost you after 5 years later.
Yeah. So it's 5 years after I'd had heart surgery. So the heart valve's not keeping up anymore. I was at like 45% regurgitation. So at like 8:30 at night, I was in bed asleep every single night until I was dating Jordy. Like my wife, I would exhaust myself for like weeks on end, and then I would just have a day where she would like be somewhere else, and I would just sleep from like morning to night, like get up and pee and eat, and then go back to bed and just sleep the entire day to try to recover. So like mom coming in and yelling at me makes total sense why I was totally lost. And I had no idea that Spud was in the other room hanging out with some girl because I pass out like it was over. But the context of getting yelled at, because it happened more than once, but one of the most famous stories in my mind, or at least infamous stories, is it was after my mission. So it's the same time frame, but it's summer. Um, Me and Chris and Spud are filling up water balloons for a singles ward activity, and we're using our crappy old laundry baskets. And I don't
Well,
know why.
let let's be fair about this. You and I were filling up water balloons. Chris had like tied one around his finger and was trying to untie it most of the time. It's just like I don't get it. How do you
Guys,
what have I
it
done wrong?
sucked. I think he was trying to do it wrong. He was the
Yeah,
one that assigned it to us
yeah.
because he was the
He was in
Elkhorn
charge of the
president.
activity, and so yeah, I think that he pawned off the work on us.
So we're sitting on the front porch filling water balloons with Weber water because we're not going to waste good water on
Yeah,
singles
not
ward
water you pay for. Some of it splashes in your mouth. That's fine. Whatever.
I never killed anybody much. Okay. But so we're filling these water balloons up. We had like two baskets, and mom gets home from work because that's all mom ever did was work. And
Yep.
bless her heart. But she comes home from work and she's in her uniform. Uh and she like comes up and is talking to us and like, oh, like, well, here's what we're doing. And she's like, okay. And so instead of trying to push past us, she goes to the back door. She turns around and I think it was Chris. I think Chris threw the first water balloon. There were
Mm.
two.
All
No,
right.
was
Go
it
go
you?
ahead. Go ahead. You tell your version of it, and I'll
No,
tell you
well,
how I remember it.
no, you go ahead because
It was as mom is pulling up. Chris. It was either
that
you
was
or Chris.
that was the first water balloon.
Dared me. Said, "Hey, I dare you throw a water balloon at mom when she gets out of her car." And it's when she got out of her car and picks up her laptop, I throw a water balloon at her. And it's like right as she turns away, so it hits her in the back, like in one shoulder, basically, and splatters there, and misses her computer, luckily, because that's the first thing she was mad about. Because she whirled around. It was like the moment she got home. She's like, well, she turns around and she goes, Robert! And you're sitting there filling a water balloon
Yeah.
at the time.
Okay, so let me back up because she was she was out of the car because it was close. She was standing in our little walkway. She did have her computer, but I I don't know who threw the water balloon. I'm guessing it was you.
I know I hit mom with a water balloon.
There you go.
In her
So
uniform.
she did turn around and from no feet away, the water balloon, it was a lob, right? So you didn't chuck it, but like it was a
Yeah,
lob and it did catch her, but I mean they were crappy water balloons, so it was like a
yeah.
hit and the
They're,
water
well,
splashed
they were also
away from
tiny.
me.
Like they were really
Yeah.
small. Like I don't think they were meant to be water balloons.
All the dollar water balloons is what they were.
Yeah.
So she whirls around just angry, like ready to draw her gun. Luckily, her arms were full and starts running. And I'm literally holding a water balloon, tying it. And I'm like, I didn't do it. And she points it, and she says, Chris. And Chris is like,
Chris,
I didn't do it.
hand still tied with water balloons on
That
it.
ow, ow. So at this point, with three of your sons on the front porch, the natural selection to the next child that you would yell at would be the other one. But instead, mom said,
Right back, Robert.
happening here? I did say.
I remember you calling her out. You're like, wait a minute, there's 3 of us on the porch right now.
Like,
and
I
you
wasn't
said
gonna-
2 names.
I wasn't gonna narc on Spudley, but I was just like, hold on a second. So for some reason, saying that and calling her out, I was officially blamed for that. She's like, Steven didn't do it, and me and Chris did the
What?
with Steven just laughing because he has nothing in his hand.
I have nothing in my hands. I
Just
haven't denied
chucked it.
anything. I threw it and like looked down after it hit. Like, so she goes inside. She's like, I was holding my computer. You could have damaged it. She goes inside to get changed. And while she's in there, I think Chris and I start laughing about it. And Rob gets mad and starts trying to hit me with a water balloon. And I end up on top of the porch, like dodging back and forth. And you throw one at me, and I duck it right as Mom opens the front door. And it hits the screen and just sprays her. Like she's changed into new clothes. And
That
she's
one
just
was
been
me.
sprayed
That one
immediately.
was me.
And that's the one that I did get yelled at for. She's like, Steven! I'm like, I dodged it. You can't get mad at me for that.
Her anger was always there, but not really directed well. So give her that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was the way that things happened. But Grandma Michelle did blame me for a lot of things. Apparently I had Nathan to help blame for that. So know that
For
my name
something.
was sullied by Nate along with Mom's. So
Well, I do remember you and Nathan being the ones that like broke down the door to our bedroom. And then I remember, so like you guys were in like a big fight, broke down the door, and Mom was like, I'm not replacing the door. You guys are just going to break it again. And so there wasn't a door on the bedroom. And you went on your mission, and then Nate went on his mission, and then I'm in that room by myself, and I'm like, Mom, can we replace that door? She's like, no, you guys broke it. I'm like, no, the people that broke it have both left by now. Like,
Yeah.
Can I get a door, though? She's like, what do you need a door for? I'm like, general privacy so I can change, I guess. Like,
yeah,
it's going to be open most of the time. But she's like, no. And then I go on my mission, and like a few months after I get home, she's like, hey, come out back and help me paint this door. We're putting a few coats on it because we got a new door. I'm like, oh, cool. And I go in and I'm kind of helping paint. And I'm not really too happy about it. I'm a little surly anyway. And I'm like, cool, like, where's this door going? She's like, oh, it's going on your old room because Mom has moved in there now. And she gets a door. And I'm like, that's it. I'm out. I just dropped the paintbrush and walked away. I'm like, no, I'm not helping you paint that door. You made me live without one. You can live without one for all I care.
that door got broken so long ago.
I still remember, like, the moment, so, like, it broke, and you guys fought for, like, a while afterwards, but once you guys had calmed down at last, I remember, like, we took duct tape, and, like, the door was one of those terrible inside doors that's made out of, like, cardboard, but, like, we tried to duct tape it back on, and I remember you tried to close the door, and that whole top corner just, whoa.
Well, Nathan was doing something, and then he thought that he was clever, so he ran into the bedroom to get away.
Oh.
And
I remember this fight very well because I stood in the bathroom door and watched as you charged at that door over and over again.
well, it only folded. It folded the first time, but then yes, I kept doing it because the door was already broken. But
Yeah.
the problem was, is Nathan went low.
So I think he might have pushed a dresser in front of the door.
After I hit it and folded the first time.
I remember you hitting it and like pushing it in and like hearing Nathan scream inside. And then when you had like gone back after a couple of tries, that like he had like pushed the dresser in front of the
old
door.
metal,
it's like the army surplus one, right?
Army surplus one.
So after you went on your mission, that army surplus dresser. So it's this big, like the top and sides were metal, but top and sides were wood, but like the back was this big sheet of metal. The drawers were all big metal pieces. I was sleeping and my bed was behind it. So I fell asleep and I started trying to like stretch out in my bed, but I wasn't straight up and down. I was at a diagonal. So in the middle of the night, as I'm stretching, I hear gong as I headbutt this thing. And then I try to stretch and I hear crash as the thing falls over. And it sounds like dropping pots and pans down the stairs. Woke up everyone in the house.
Oh, man.
We've lost the thread again. Dating. Don't do it.
Just do it. Yeah. Do it early on and get rid of all the awkwardness.
Yeah.
And don't keep girls at the house past midnight.
Nothing good comes of it for anybody involved.
No kissing on the first date. No matter how tempting it seems, because it always ends poorly.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times. I was thinking, man, like I feel like there were a lot of really bad dating experiences that we didn't even get into.
We can't skip over our double date. Do you remember that one?
Oh,
that
no.
You took out a girl that you had met on the bus, and I took out a girl from the singles ward, I think?
Millstream ward.
Yeah. So...
Sergeant? Wasn't her last name Sergeant?
Maybe? I don't know. She was this tall girl. I remember she was in that singles ward my entire stay in that singles ward. So, like, years later... Never went on another date with me. Or no, did go on one more date with me, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it was years and years later. But yeah, that one. So we had gotten we'd gotten scholarships for being children of highway patrol officers. So because of mom. So there was this big dinner, like this like big fancy dinner, like 3-course meal sort of thing, and they would have like speakers at it. And we went there, and it was out in Midway.
Utah.
Yeah, Midway, Utah, which I think is that an hour and a half or 2-hour drive? Or is it only an hour, and it just felt like forever?
It felt like it was a 5-hour drive.
Yeah. We had enough to say and like conversation to go for like maybe half an hour of the drive. And then after that, it was like pulling teeth to like try and get anything going. Because unlike... you and Chris, we never had that like easy conversation thing in front of other people. Like we were like,
why we do this not with a live audience?
No, not with. Well, we definitely can't do it when we're both on first dates. I feel like if you had Jordy with you, or if I had anyone who has any kind of fun with me, then maybe it would have gone differently. But
it was a tender mercy that I decided to take some other girl on that date so my wife would still marry me. It was literally the worst date I've ever been on.
Yeah, like it was maybe an hour and a half drive out.
It was a free dinner.
We got a free dinner.
Boring venue, and it wasn't a good dinner. And it was
that the one where the guy got up and talked for like the entire hour-long meeting when he was supposed to do the 20-minute intro or something like that, and we're all just there like waiting for it to be over.
And we've got these 2 girls that we just drove like an hour and a half with,
that we've basically just met. Don't have anything in common with either of them.
Oh, looking back at that was so bad.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that one was a struggle.
That was easy. See, yeah, it was rough.
But hey, good things came of it. You ended up getting back together with Jordy after that. Not long after that.
No, it was, that was that was bad. Just bad. Oh man. Huh.
Jeez. Yeah,
I'm trying-
that one brings back the shivers, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's one of those like haunting. One of those people that you should be like, I should look that person up and apologize again.
It does make me wonder. So like I love reminiscing about stories, and there are an awful lot of stories that we haven't talked about in regards to like bad dating, at least in my regard, because I was single for a long time. We didn't even touch on me getting kidnapped by that girl. Poor old Dom. But I feel like I had a point, and I've lost it.
A lot of bad dating experiences.
So many of them. But
But you got to work out that awkwardness early.
yeah, you get through the awkward phase, and eventually you have a lot of fun with it.
Nope. And have as much fun as you put into it. Sometimes you just have lame ducks.
And for the life of me, I have never once been able to get into the mind space of like, I just want to be friends with this person. I was always like dead set on like, well, we're gonna figure out if we're compatible at all because we're never gonna see each other again otherwise. There are no girls that I found with, like simpatico, like functional personalities that work with me real well. At least not any that would go on dates with me.
Friend zone. The friend zone never happened after the mission.
That is for sure.
Realized rather quickly that was a waste of time.
Yeah. Anyway, do we have a moral for the story aside from don't date bad?
Avoid the friend zone. Double dating with your brothers can be fun, but also terrible.
Never had a positive one. Never once had a positive one.
Don't ever take a first date for a 2.5 hour car ride with your brother with another first date.
Yeah. Though if you hit it off, like that would also be an awesome first date. Like that's the thing. So when I went on my first date with Hannah, I brought her over to eat dinner, and we spent like 5 hours talking. So like, I think that drive with her would have actually been fine. I just don't. I can't think of any other girl that I ever dated or went on a date with where I feel like that would have been the case.
Yeah, that was so bad. Oh, that's so bad. We should just end now.
Yeah, this is probably cut your losses at some point. Cut your losses. Move on.
Cut your losses. And if you're Chris, just hang out as the awkward third wheel.
that is something. So I have only ever third wheeled once, and it was on one of Chris's dates. Because Chris brought his date to like a church function or maybe like a game night with the boys. And then I hung out in this really misguided like, oh, like I'm the chaperone of this date. Like you guys can't be left alone. And so I remember I got in a fight with him, and I feel bad for it. I should probably apologize about that at some point. But
make a note for this one.
So yeah, everyone's bad at it. Don't let anyone lie to you.
Don't be the awkward third wheel. Don't be the awkward third wheel.
All right. Well, we will follow this up again next time with whatever strikes our fancy, I imagine. Probably day of. Who knows?
Always time.
Maybe I'll finally start that mouse study this week, and then we'll have all sorts of interesting animal stories to go back to again.
There we go. We have plenty of those.
All right. Well, you have a good one. We will see you all later.
See ya.